have space. There was a warning. A warning. I ignored the warning. Sorry, Barbara. Continue, please.
That's okay. Hold on a second. I have to say got it here. Um, there's a lot has been going on about budget and about deficits and about other things going on. The board approved a cut budget from what was recommended by the Finance Committee at a special meeting on Saturday a couple of days ago. But I know the mini grant program, we're looking forward to the mini grant program still being in existence and having some tweaking done to it. And that's really all I can say at the moment. And which probably isn't very satisfactory, but there we are.
Okay. Cheryl, and then
Yes,
Teresa.
I wish to clarify. There are two different things here. One is called the mini grant program, which is organized by a committee that has in the past looked at proposals from branches and issue committees about things they want to do and money they'd like to get out of the mini grant account. Okay, and
Correct.
then
That's what Barbara
there
was
is
talking about.
then yes, she's talking
That
about
is
that.
that is a distinct thing, separate from the set
From
aside.
the allowance that each
Separate,
committee
yes.
gets.
The
So
different
I'd
thing.
like, and Jan Corderman wrote us a very nice email that you will have all got about an hour ago, which is worth reading. Okay. It used to be $500 per committee.
Yes.
And then you could, on top of that, if you were able to fundraise for your committee, you could go over that. And so now I'd like Barbara to tell me what happened at the board meeting. Has that $500 been reduced to some other amount that we are now
Cheryl, we're
working
still
towards?
talking just about the mini grant program. Teresa had her hand up. We will cover that topic as well, but not until we're done with this one. Go ahead, Teresa.
I'm glad to hear that it didn't get cut, but I'd like to know how soon it could start up, because June was kind of usual and customary offering of the mini grant, and which is not far away. So do you anticipate us being to apply in June, Bob?
I cannot answer that at this time. First of all, I'm not the chair of the committee. But I don't know that anybody can say exactly about the reconstitution of the committee yet. There's been a lot of discussion back and forth about things. So as soon as they know something, I am sure they will send out an update and let everybody else know. I think I think that heretofore and hoping is a good attitude, but I think the saying that I was told when I was a child, don't count your chickens before they're hatched, probably is not a bad admonition to keep in mind. We don't know the answer to a lot of things at this point, and I understand that's probably not satisfactory for some people, and I apologize.
So, Barbara, before the call started, Philip and I were the only people on. I don't see him now. And he said that you and he had spoken, and we, meaning I thought I heard him, I understood him to say he, you, and I would be trying to get together next week to begin talking about reconstituting the mini grant program. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay, good enough.
Yes, it is. I'm happy to confirm that.
Thanks. So now we're going to get the updates from all the issue committees that are present. We're going to go in alphabetical order, and AHR is first. You have 3 minutes.
Oh,
AHR, I'll give you a warning when you're at 1 minute. Dang, Cheryl, I
Sorry,
didn't see your hand up. Did you have a
Yeah,
question?
you've missed the next thing on the agenda, which was the $500 budgeted to
Oh,
each
yes,
issue
you're
committee.
right.
I'd like to
Yes.
know if the board actually have cut that or not.
No, but it would appear that there has been there have been conversations recently that I will put this in first person, that led me to realize that what I thought was still happening with the annotations in the budget for issues committees had been administered in a manner differently than it had been set up originally. And so I think we're going to want to have a conversation about that, about which comes first in terms of what is expended, and what the original purpose was of giving the annotation in the budget of funds for issue committees that didn't have raised money was all about. So that I am not prepared to talk about that in detail today, but it's been in various emails that some of you may have seen about realizing that there are a couple of different viewpoints about how that money is being used. The one thing that everybody is clear on is the allocation that I think it started at 400 originally, and it's been 5.
Yes.
That money does not carry forward under any circumstances. It has to be spent in the year in which it's put in the budget.
Dee, for the stack, I have a question
Go ahead, Dee.
about that. So part of the discussion entailed a difference of opinion, and I'm wondering how this is going to be resolved. It appears that that there was a movement made by, I think, the development committee, that those of us that did raise funds, we would continue to carry them over. And then I saw another opinion that said, well, you don't get, whatever you receive in terms of donations for your committee is automatically deducted from the annual amount. And so,
No,
I-
no, nobody has ever said that.
okay, I thought you said in that email that like for instance, take DeepHow, we got a small donation of $250, and I thought you said that was deducted from the 500, that we would not be able to receive the
No,
entire 500, that you would take the small donation first. We were supposed to use that up first.
you are conflating two entirely separate issues. The and in your case, the 250 had been characterized by some people, mischaracterized by some people as money not spent. Where in point of fact, the money was going to go to the person who said, don't bother sending me a check, I'm going to give it back to you. So why don't you just keep it in your funds? And that had not been carefully annotated. That's not true. The word careful is wrong. That not been annotated in the spreadsheets in a way to make clear what had happened. So when there was a discussion about, well, we had mini grant money and we didn't use 250 of it, so we should be able to still use it. That characterization is not what happened.
No, we used the 500 allocation pretty much up this year, but
Now,
we should still
you're
have the
talking about
250.
two different things. You're talking about two different things. Let me finish telling you about the mini grant money. Your mini
As
grant was,
quickly as you can, or you and Dee might want to take this offline.
well,
No, everybody needs to be concerned if that's what's happening.
well, but this is not there are some confusions here. So a mini grant of 750 for 3 honoraria, 2 took the money, the third didn't, said, I'm giving it back to you. In retrospect, we probably should have written the check, send it to her, and had her send the check back to us so that there would have been 2 separate transactions in our books. But it wasn't done that way. So there had been confusion about that is totally separate from the other issue, which is the allocation that has been granted to issues committees over the years for a number of years out of general money that started out 400 a year and went up to 5. And the idea was the following: there were 2 committees, at least for a number of years, who were able to raise money every year. Disarm had been one of them, and the Water Committee in various names, and sometimes Corporations versus Democracy. But not all committees had been successful in raising money, and in some cases, it was thought that what they were doing wasn't really conducive to raising money exactly. So the board determined that there would be a rainy day fund of $500, 400, then 500, that would be allocated out of our general funds, out of our members' monies, and that it would be used in the following manner. If your issue committee had funds that you had generated and you had expenses, you were expected to use those generated monies to do your expenses. And if you once you ran out of external money, if you still had expenses, you could use the 500. And if your committee never generated anything, you at least had this 500 to your credit, so that if you needed to, I don't know, make some flyers, you didn't have to come to the board to get approval and an allocation from the budget for that kind of thing. It was just there. So that money, that 500 now, stays there on the books as an annotation. If it's spent, it's spent. If it's not spent, it disappears. The next year, there's a different new 500. That was the idea behind it. I do understand that over a period of years, there has been some shift in understanding. And now that it's out that there is that difference, we're going to need to have, we on the board and the finance committee in particular are going to have some conversations, and also with the program committee. So that's the difference, Dee. You don't conflate the money that your donor gave you with the 500 credit that's on the books.
Thanks, Barbara, for that history lesson.
I'm
We
not
will
clear
not be
because
able to discuss this anymore, this topic. You can communicate with Barbara, email or call or whatever, but we
yeah,
have
basically
extended
what
it.
incentive is there to fundraise if we're not going to receive the same amounts that other issue committees receive?
I
that
remember
aren't-
you saying that Saturday, but
So
right now
that is something
we have to
that
go
we
on.
should have
I don't want to
both
mute you.
time to talk
Please,
about.
please, sis.
Everyone receives 500. No
Okay.
one gets any more than 500.
Thanks a
If
lot.
the issue
Barbara.
committee raised money on their own and brought it in, that's separate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you
3
very much.
minutes. Advancing Human Rights Chair, please.
Thank you, George. And I do want to thank you, George, for your consistency and still remaining a member of Advancing Human Rights, and for setting up the Zooms, because on the first Monday of every month, the Ending Mass Incarceration and the Death Penalty Working Group meets. And Monday is coming up, May 6th, George. So if you could do us the honor of sending that out for the meeting coming up. And I'm very happy to say we put online now a housing justice working group. And we had a major victory in Georgia, getting state legislation passed, going after slumlords. It's called the Safe and Affordable Housing Act, and the governor has already signed it. So slumlords beware. And then, of course, we have the UN decade reparations. And the good news coming out of Geneva is that there will be another decade, because the Permanent Forum for People of African Descent felt that there wasn't enough accomplished on recognition, justice, and development. So get ready. The movement for reparations is taking on like wildfire. And for the last minute, I'd like to give it to Adrian, because I'm just so happy. My Chicano comrade has taken on the role of the Border Migration Justice Working Group. So, Adrian, could you just say how you're feeling about that?
Hey, yeah, this is Adrian, and I'm feeling really good. We've been meeting, and I'm trying to bring out information from all over to inform people about the issues of immigration, which are very deep and they go very long. It has to do with capitalism and cheap labor, things like that. So I'm very happy to be with the committee, and I'm going to do my best. Thank you for.
Well, thank you. And just one final thing, George. George and I and Jan Quarterman were in the Wealth International Palestine Working Group this morning. And it's really a sad situation with all of this momentum going on in the US with the students, etc. There were like
It's okay.
five. There
I
were
got
like
insurance. Don't worry. Full coverage.
Philip needs to mute himself. But George, I think you should find a place on the agenda to talk about that working group. And I hope that Joan or Alan or someone is going to report on the Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee, because the whole MENA region is on fire. So the Lebanon section and the Palestine section were both present this morning. There were 3 of us from the US section, and most of the other people there were staff from the IS. There was one other section that I noticed from Spain, that we have got to get more sections involved worldwide. And I'm not sure what the World International Secretariat is staffing in terms of outreach to get other sections on board for this moment of Palestine and Gaza, and how it has ignited the young people. And it's just going to spread because the faculty will join it with their unions, and then the skilled trades people will join it with their unions, and they will say divest, boycott, divest, sanctions. That's the movement we must push. Thank you. Sorry to be going into the Middle East report, but it's important that we know. BDS.
Okay.
BDS.
So now we need to hear from Lenny and then Cheryl.
Okay, yeah, this is Lenny Gomez Reeves,
I'll come on the
Cuban
camera when you
Bolivarian Alliance. Hello?
Oh, I just said I'll come on camera when you've got 1 minute left.
Yeah. Cuba and the Bolivarian Alliance Issue Committee. I'm hoping I have the whole 3 minutes.
Yeah, you
So
do.
we have a 2-pronged campaign, and it's the one is sort of treating the cause and the other is treating the symptoms. And it's in conjunction, of course, with other organizations and the National Network on Cuba, which we are a proud member. And the symptoms part is this. Imagine, having a heart problem, you or a family member or a friend, you need a pacemaker, you can't get one, you're at risk of death. And that's what's happening to a lot of people in Cuba due to US policy. The blockade of Cuba is responsible for a lot of suffering and death. That's by design. We need to keep working to get rid of the US blockade of Cuba. And right now, we need to get Biden to take Cuba off the US list of state sponsors of terrorism. Trump put Cuba on this list. Biden needs to reverse this. It can be done with the stroke of a pen. It economically isolates Cuba. Over the past year, like over 130 banks worldwide have refused to carry out operations with Cuban banks. Not because of any other reason than that they fear US sanctions for, dealing with a country on this list. Transactions are not done with suitcases of cash. You have to carry them out. And so this being on this list has really hampered Cuba's ability to obtain fuel, to obtain food, to obtain medical equipment and supplies. So let Biden and your representatives know, call, send messages, visit their offices, try to get resolutions passed by your union, your city council. I'll put resources in the chat. Then the other part is, let's take some action together to get a few pacemakers to Cuba. We're with Global Health Partners and all these organizations together. We're attempting to raise money for at least 300 pacemakers. It's a type with which Cuban cardiac surgeons are familiar, for which there are technicians on the island. The Cuban International Medical Brigades help people all over the world. It's time for us to do a little to help out. I'll put the donations info in the chat, and also resources info. But again, we all know that it's actually easier to get people to donate than it is to get them to take political action. So I just want to circle back to the state-sponsored terrorism thing for 1 second. The State Department's only justification, one and only justification for having Cuba on this list is, quote, Cuba also continues to harbor several U.S. fugitives from justice wanted on charges related to political violence, many of whom have resided in Cuba for decades. In other words, can you spell Asada Shakur? Well, Cuba is not going to sell Asada, we need to get Cuba off this list. Thank you. Appreciate. Let me hit the send button for the chat so you can see the resources. This doesn't mean that you do this instead of Gaza. It means you do it in addition. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Lenny. We'll hear from Dee and then Nancy.
I thought I was next.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, Cheryl. You are.
And just to acknowledge that Diane Blay is also here, who is one of our co-chairs. And what we are doing is always reported in the monthly e-news. So I encourage you all to read your e-news, and not just what comes in the email, but to click on read more at the bottom of each paragraph so that you find out what all the issue committees are doing. So we are, as usual, concentrating on getting rid of the ICBMs that sit in the middle of the country. We will be having a demonstration. We're joining another group who have daytime demonstrations at the Vandenberg Space Force Base near Lompoc, June the 5th. I will be driving there and joining this other group, and people from the Marshall Islands are going to speak, and we're going to have people filming it. So this is part of our effort to highlight the awfulness of the ICBMs, that they are not a useful nuclear weapon and are we call a nuclear sponge. They're there to draw the missiles of Russia, and all those people in the Midwest are going to get killed first. So that's one of the things we're doing. We are on the No to NATO weekend, July the 6th and 7th in DC. We are a co-sponsor with World Beyond War or what have you, to go and talk about the not necessity of having NATO. It's not a defensive entity. It's a offensive entity. They will be having their 75th anniversary shindig on the Monday, the 8th of July. So we're trying to be there and be in front of the White House to show that NATO is no longer a reasonable military institution. It's not even North Atlantic. They've got people joining from the South. And we're looking forward to the Congress. We will have a workshop on conflicts over water. So please attend our workshop when that happens. And we have many campaigns. We are campaigning against autonomous weapons. There is in Vienna today and yesterday, there was a big meeting arranged by the Austrian government to how to get to regulate autonomous weapons. You may know them as killer robots. So as usual, we have 11 campaigns that are going on, and we welcome other people to join our committee. We meet twice a month on a Sunday at 4:30 if you were in the Pacific. So thank you, everybody, for your interest in disarm.
Thanks, Cheryl. So now we have Dee and then Nancy.
Hi, well, mine is much shorter. We have postponed next month's meeting in DPAL. There's a lot of work we need to do as far as networking with other organizations, like some of the established committees have already done. And so that's going to be kind of like a full-time thing. So as lead organizer of the DPAL committee right now, we postponed until the end of the Congress, and we'll resume our work again at the end of June, which is usually when we have our meetings. And hopefully by then, a couple of new people that have expressed interest in joining will be able to attend. And we can begin, pick up where we left off with a lot of our work. Thank you.
Thank you. And you win the award for the shortest update. Nancy, and then whoever can fill us in on MEPJAC. Nancy?
Yes, hello, everybody. So Earth Democracy is, we hope, getting our new text for our website pages up before Congress. We're working on that. We have a meeting tomorrow with a couple of our team members. And I hope you're all going to register or have registered for the Congress. It's really, it's on the theme of water at the front lines for peace. And agency, advocacy, and action is our subheading. It's going to be a way to actually bring together a lot of what's going to be presented at the Congress, and then be able to sort of, through campaigns of agency, advocacy, and action, to carry through on a lot of what has been presented in terms of action plans by the presenters. So go to the Congress website. I'll put that in the chat. Look at the schedule and look at the program, and you'll begin to see what we've been working on for a number of months. Thanks very much.
Wow. Thanks, Nancy. That was a great commercial for the Congress. Is there anyone here who can give us an update on the Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee? No?
Well, I don't know about the committee, but the Gaza demonstrations in the center of the University of Michigan are hot and heavy. Odile has been part of that. And so Wilf is represented in that mix. It's a very beautiful coming out of younger and older and all nationalities. It's a beautiful manifestation of people who just had enough and finding one another and providing good food and comradeship for one another. Most beautiful for the center of Ann Arbor and apparently many other places.
Yes, it is. Thanks for that, Alan. And as Teresa pointed out earlier, we do have to build a strong movement, and from the universities, as she mentioned, the professors will start joining them, and then the unions, and then the tradespeople, and it will spread because it has to be huge to shut this travesty down. So I trust that there's no one for CSW, maybe?
George, I'm raising my hand on the
I got you.
spread.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Because of the spread of the movement. See, all the media reports, Alan, are liking this or making the connection between this movement of students and the Vietnam era, because they are risking arrest by the hundreds, and it's public institutions as well as private institutions. And I think about the University of North Carolina with 16 campuses in the state, and Georgia, I think, with over 10. So to have it spreading through the public institutions. But the victory I heard today at Brown University, you can kind of count on Brown because the students declared victory, because Brown is saying now it will divest. So the students packed up their camp. Because Brown is going to be having a meeting in a few weeks to talk about divesting. And I know how we were able to get the movement to end apartheid in South Africa. It's all about the BDS folks. You got to hit them that way. Boycott, divest, sanction. You got to hit them that way. And all the pension funds, see it, every municipality, that's how we can do it. Go to the Columbus Consolidated Government here in Columbus, Georgia, and say divest any pension funds that might be
Pardon me?
invested in Israel, because see, Israel trains a lot of
Oh,
police
put
officers
water on it, and then you have to.
with the idea of somebody is being a little weird in talking through this. But folks, Disarm Committee, Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee, it's all about Palestine. And when the World Beyond War convenes the No to NATO meeting, which is this Friday, May 3rd, George and I will be there, and hopefully I've been seeing Diane Blay there. So let's make sure that Wilf is well represented. In those meetings, I'm representing the Southern Anti-Racism Network and my labor connections. But we need to make sure that Wilf, Disarm, and Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committees are represented in the No to NATO meeting coming up on Friday. Sorry, George. I'm just so excited about what the students are doing because they are so serious and it's everywhere, spreading like wildfire.
All right, that's wonderful. Philip and then Nancy, and then Mary Beth for Women, Money, and Democracy. Go ahead, Philip.
Because people bring up
3
the
minutes.
subject.
Yes,
Because
sir.
people have brought up the subject of disinvestment in California, no public universities are allowed to disinvest, period. So UC Berkeley, UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, none of these schools have the ability to disinvest by law. So that's that fact is very, very little known, but it is law, has been law for some time now.
Since Vietnam and several members of the Board of Regents were on the board.
Wow, y'all beat D as the shortest presentation or 3-minute deal so far. That's pretty awesome. Nancy, and then Mary Beth.
So as part of this discussion, I'd like to make two remarks. First of all, we need to think about what's going to happen at the RNC and the DNC. And don't forget that the DNC takes place in Chicago. So I can imagine that the memory of what happened in 1968 in Chicago will inspire people to think about actions. But I also want to say that as we talk about NATO and No to NATO, I will send to George to maybe send out to this group that we have the US Global Command System, which has divided up the world into US commands. So as we talk about NATO so much, the US command system gets no attention and they hide behind NATO. And when Black Alliance for Peace talks about AFRICOM, it's not put into the context of the Global Command System as one of the commands. And the Global Command System was developed right after World War II, just before NATO, I think, was created. So I'd like to, at some time, maybe discuss how we can bring in a critique of the US Global Command System. It's very important, and there's very little attention paid to it.
That's true.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Nancy. Mary Beth, can you give us an update on women? Oh, there's some questions. I saw Alan and then Teresa. Where'd you go? There you go.
Did I get called on?
Yes,
The
sir.
last comment about the global command system, it just
Okay.
brings to the fore that the world is organized in a war system, and that the unifying demand that we need to put forward is end the whole war system.
That's right.
The command system is full spectrum domination from the top of the sky to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
With priority in the budget and the whole war system. And that includes all this money to support the war system as it affects Israel. But this campaign needs to be more than simply that, though. That is a very important wedge into, it's the money that is making the the values judgment, and that has to be changed, and the whole war system.
Exactly. Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Alan. Teresa,
Well, I just wanted to say quickly, Ann Wright, who is a Wolf member, and she is an expert on these commands. Hearing her talk about the Pacific area, and I know in the Southern Command, they act like they want to try to operate out of Fort Moore here in Columbus because they show up here all the time, and then they always doing stuff messing around Miami. So I just think that Ann Wright, if we want to do something, she's the expert. So I hope we can do something soon, Nancy, because it is important to understand that NATO is no longer just North Atlantic, it's the whole world. And then these commands, they all coordinate with each other. And it's just war everywhere. Thank you.
yeah,
I
and their
think that
goal
we
is
could,
full
I just
spectrum
respond?
dominance.
I
Yeah,
think-
yep, continue.
I think that would be good to put on a webinar
Absolutely.
on the global command system.
Yep.
That's my point. That's my point, Nancy. Because see, we have used Ann Wright before, and I know that she knows a lot, and she comes with all of the what do you call it, slides and everything. So
Yeah.
she does it so well.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I will send a link to an article, a short article I wrote about it as well, that shows the map very clearly. In any
Mhm.
case, it's,
Yep.
yeah,
Thank
sure.
you.
Okay, goodbye.
We have that map on our No to NATO strategy chart.
Yeah, and we're in agreement, George. And so we can
Good
start
thing.
talking about getting the webinar together after the whole NATO thing. Maybe we could do something in August or so.
Oh, cool. All right. Mary Beth, can you talk about women, money, and democracy? I will be at the DNC in Chicago in August, along with my Move to Amend youngsters.
Okay, Women, Money, and Democracy.
Yes, ma'am.
We had a meeting in April, which unfortunately did not get recorded. It was the first time we were using the Wilf account, and they neglected to give us the host key. So I was not able to record, but we have good notes and resources in the chat. And it was all about tax equity, which was fascinating. And we heard over and over again how rigged the tax system is in this country in favor of rich people and on the backs of poor people. We won't have a meeting in May because we're prioritizing directing people to register for the Congress. We will be supporting our colleagues at Alliance for Just Money at their Chicago event, May Day for Money. There'll be a demonstration on the steps of the Chicago Federal Reserve, and we'll be presenting a letter asking the Federal Reserve to reevaluate how they create money.
Mhm.
And our partner, An Economy of Our Own, has a big lineup of a series of webinars this year. The first one was the series is called Full Bodied Economics. And the first one was about private equity and the damage that it does to democracy, to regular folks, and to the idea of participatory involvement in government. And they recently had another one Monday night on the economics of the environment. and they interviewed Osprey Oriel Lake, who is with the Women's Climate Action Network. We Can. She's going to be a speaker at our Congress as well. And I was at our Shirley Chisholm meeting, so I didn't hear her, but I've heard her before and she's excellent. And then on July 29th, they're having full-bodied health economics, which will talk about the disparity in health between white and people of color, and also the ruthlessness of the capitalist profiteering that goes on in healthcare. And that's pretty much it. That takes us up through July.
Wow, thanks. Good timing too.
Oh, and we also we've also been trying to collaborate with AHR's new housing subcommittee. Teresa, if you could remind me when their next meeting is, I would appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Do you have the date, or can you let us know, Teresa, the next housing justice working group meeting? I should know it too, but I'm not good at looking things up while I'm on Zoom. I will make sure it's included, Mary Beth, when I send out the recording and the chat and the transcript. All righty, so we have crossed the hour threshold. I apologize. I don't want us to feel rushed, but let's try to be concise. There's not a whole lot more to share. Any updates or new information about the Congress? We've had a great commercial from Nancy Price and some good information from Dee in terms of prioritizing the work and putting DPOW on hold. I want to let y'all know, and you may have seen, I believe it was an e-alert, that during 2 evenings during the Congress, Thursday and Friday night, for an hour or an hour and a half per evening, I hope, pray, a team of folks from the Black Liberation Caucus will be offering initial training for trainers on ending white supremacy. So it's not anything that's thorough, because you can't have anything that's thorough in 2 or 3 hours, but you can get started. And that's the intention, with the expectation and commitment on the part of those who participate. The participants will be at least 2 people of European descent from a branch. And those 2 folks, after that initial 2 evenings, will walk away with their initial plan for doing consistent, regular, sustainable, and accountable work with their branch on ending white supremacy and building the branch and all the values that are expressed with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's my announcement or update about the Congress. Anyone else have something about the Congress to share? Or any other announcements? Those 2 things are
Right. So I was
Yes.
just writing in the chat that the schedule, we've got it pretty much finalized. We're just doing a few more details. There's a new section on the website under program for bios, and this will be continued to be updated as well. Those who are presenting at the Congress, we already have George, but like maybe here, Cheryl, Barbara, we're waiting on some of the bios from you so that we can, add that to the list that's under program. So thank you. It's under workshops, Cheryl, the training on DEI. It's under the workshops.
Okay, but
It should-
okay.
How many words for a bio?
Up to 150.
Okay.
Although some people go a
Right.
little bit over, but yeah, we're looking at that.
And
So
have you
please
worked
send them
out how
in.
the posters are going to work?
How the poster sessions, I'll leave that to Nancy. She has a better understanding, but from our work with the tech committee, it looks like they'll be mostly like setting up, you send them the materials, that you want them to have. So that would be Dasa, who is our tech committee person. You send it to her and, or you can send it to me and I'll send it to her. And she'll have them basically posted in the rooms where you have the poster sessions. And then you can have an attendant there to explain the materials and et cetera as people come in. Or you can just leave the materials out there for people to look at.
Do we get a few minutes at an assigned time to talk about our posters?
I believe that the poster sessions are going to be ongoing. So at any given point, someone can drop in and visit. If I'm not mistaken, Nancy, are you there?
Yes, there's going to be a email going out from DASA explaining the poster sessions and poster rooms. So I think what Dee has just explained will be much more elaborated on. We're getting a lot of these emails and their explanations and what would you say, lined up. So
okay.
keep looking at your email. I might just say, could I just add one thing here from Dee, that on Thursday, we're going to be trying a new, what would you say, a new way of engaging people using having breakouts, having a common breakout room and then breakout sessions using a whiteboard where we can move Post-it notes around.
Yeah.
And we're
Jamboard.
going, pardon me?
It's called Jamboard.
Well, Jamboard, whiteboard, yeah. Thank you. And we're going to be inviting everyone to put up on the Jamboard either how climate has been impacting where they live or their region, and also water issues by topic, so that we can then cluster topics or cluster people into topics or cluster people into regions and have a really good discussion about what's going on, what should be done, how we can mobilize around climate and climate action and water issues. And this will also help to sort of bring together what the various presenters over the time of Congress are going to be calling our attention to, and how we can really mobilize around climate and water in the next year or two. Thank you.
Sounds good. That's a good process. Teresa.
I am just so pleased when I got that postcard about the Congress. That was really unexpected, glossy, and beautiful. And it's something you could show to people. And so people who aren't members who didn't get it yet. But also Sunday is when AHR will do our thing, Water is Life. And I'm trying to get Patrick O'Neill. There was a nuclear waste spill in the Mississippi River recently. And so those kinds of things, and we should just keep our eyes and ears open as we move toward the Congress, because water is truly life. And if it's not right, it could kill you. And so I do want to say one last thing about last night and Martha Collins and the Black women who are running for office and living the spirit of Shirley Chisholm and Fannie Lou Hamer. So that was just so dynamic what happened last night, because we do have a member of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch who's running for office. So I think there has to be a kind of takeover in order for us to get the people in place that we need to have in place, so we can make some of the changes we need to make. But I know Mary Beth was there, and it was so dynamic. Wasn't it wonderful?
It really was. The speakers from the Wisconsin Women's Network, Bianca Shaw, I think it was.
Yeah, Shaw. That was
fabulous.
Shaw, SHAW. Yeah, and on the upcoming meetings, George, you really need a calendar. May is gonna be busy. But May 6th is ending mass incarceration and the death penalty. And May 8th, Mary Beth, is the housing justice. So we want to make sure that the person who's with the Burlington branch, is her name Jean, who agreed to come to the meetings.
Yes, Jean Hopkins. What time of day is it?
Oh, it's in the evening. We're trying to do things in the evening, so it's 6:30, I do believe.
6:30 Eastern.
Yeah, for the housing, and then 2 p.m. on Monday for the ending mass incarceration. So we got 2 meetings coming up with the AHR this week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
George, could I make a
Announcement?
announcement? So for the Congress, we're having Kelly Landine of Nuke Watch report and talk on the Monticello Dam that not the dam, sorry, a nuclear energy plant that leaked the tritium into the Mississippi. Yeah. So she will be speaking, I think it's on Saturday. Kelly Landine.
Oh, great. Well, I won't worry about trying to find somebody on that. Thank you.
Yeah. Good. Okay. She's a great, if you go back to the most recent e-news, the April e-news, she and I had a terrific article under Earth Democracy about that leak, and the nuclear energy is the flip side of nuclear bombs. Very good piece. Anyway, she's great, young person.
All right. Thank you all. So we only went 12 past the hour. Oh, Cheryl, your hand is up. Is that a question or?
Yes, I've just been putting some notes into the chat, which I would like the Congress Committee to pay attention to. We are not in daylight saving times anymore. We're in standard time. So if you want to be precise, it is EST or PST. I see Michael says they're just using ET. But anyway, you have to be really careful when you talk about time zones. And the S does not mean summer, it means standard.
Yeah,
Okay.
we just got a big lecture on that that said the opposite, and we were told that it was EDT from
No.
March
Mm-mm.
through November. So I
Nope.
think we're just going to go to ET and that.
No, it's not.
Thank you.
Okay.
Google it, please.
Need for accuracy.
George, did you say that you were going to send us the transcript and the
Yes,
chat?
you'll
I
have the
can't get transcript to save that
Yes,
tells
I
me
do
I'm
have it.
saving it.
So you'll
Okay,
get
good.
the transcript, yes.
Yeah,
All right,
excellent.
then. Take care, everyone.
Thank you
See you
very
later.
much.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Sure.
Good night.
Hope the recording works.